You picture a pirate and you see the eye patch, the parrot, the gold. Forget all of that. The real pirates lived by their own laws, sailed under their own flag, and did things to captured men that were so brutal their reputations alone could take a ship without firing a shot. This is who they actually were. Let's start with the code. Every pirate ship ran on a written contract, and every man who joined had to sign it. This document was called the Pirate Code, or the Articles. The code laid out everything: how the treasure was divided, who got what share, what happened if you got hurt in battle, what was allowed on the ship, and what was not. Lose an arm in a fight, you were paid extra out of the treasure. Lose a leg, you were paid more than the man who lost a hand. Lose an eye, same idea. It was written down. It was fair. It was followed. But the code also had rules with teeth. Steal from your own crew, and the punishment was brutal. Some ships would maroon you, meaning drop you off on a tiny island in the middle of the ocean with a pistol and a single shot. You could shoot an enemy, or you could shoot yourself before the thirst and heat took you. Fight another crewman on board. Not allowed. Any argument had to be settled on land in a duel with pistols and swords, one shot each. First man to draw blood won. The captain and crew watched. Smuggle a woman onto the ship? On most ships, the punishment was death. The pirates believed a woman would cause fights among the men and destroy the crew from the inside. Break the code and you were not judged by a court. You were judged by the crew. And the crew rarely showed mercy. Now let's talk about the men who wrote these codes. Most pirates were not born criminals. They came from the navy, from merchant ships, from lives so miserable that piracy was the better option. Life on a legal ship in this era was a nightmare. Sailors were whipped for tiny mistakes. They ate rotten meat and drank water full of worms. They were paid almost nothing, sometimes not paid at all. Men were kidnapped off the streets, forced onto navy ships, and told they now belonged to the crown. For these men, joining a pirate crew was freedom, a vote, a share of the treasure, a chance to run. But the moment they took that chance, they became hunted men. And they knew what would happen if they were ever caught. So they made sure nobody wanted to catch them. This brings us to the horrible things, because for all the talk of codes and fair shares, pirates built their reputations on cruelty, and they were creative about it. The most famous punishment they used on captured men was called sweating. A prisoner was forced to run in circles around the ship's mast while pirates jabbed him with swords, forks, and needles. Every time he slowed down, he was forced to keep going until his feet gave out and he collapsed. Sometimes for hours, sometimes until he died. Another favourite was called the wooding. A rope was tied around a prisoner's head and tightened slowly, using a stick to twist it. The pressure would build until the man's eyes were forced out of his skull. Pirates did this to captains who refused to reveal where their gold was hidden. Then there was keel hauling. The prisoner was tied to a rope, thrown over one side of the ship, and dragged underneath the entire hull to the other side. The bottom of the ship was covered in barnacles, sharp as razors. If the man did not drown, he came out shredded to the bone. Very few survived. And when pirates wanted to send a message, they did something even worse. They burned prisoners with matches between the fingers. They cut off ears and noses. Some pirates were said to cut out a captive's heart, cook it, and force another prisoner to eat it. Whether that last one was real or just a story pirates spread on purpose, the point was the same. They wanted every ship on the sea to be terrified of them, and that fear was the whole strategy. Most pirates did not actually want to fight. A battle damaged the ship. A battle killed the crew. A battle used up gunpowder they could not easily replace, so they let their reputation fight for them. When a merchant ship saw a pirate flag rising on the horizon, most captains lowered their own flag and surrendered without a shot. The Jolly Roger, the skulls and crossbones and hourglasses were not decorations. They were a warning, a message that said, "Surrender now and you might live. Fight and you will beg to die." No pirate understood this better than Blackbeard. Before a battle, he would tuck slow-burning fuses into his hat and light them. Smoke curled around his massive black beard. His eyes glowed through it. He wore 3 braces of pistols across his chest. He looked like something crawled out of hell. Ships surrendered to him the moment they saw him, and here is the strangest thing about the most feared pirate in history. Blackbeard is not confirmed to have killed a single captive. He never had to. His act was so terrifying that no one ever tested it. The performance was the weapon, but not every pirate was theatre. Some were the real thing. A man named Edward Lowe tortured his captives for fun. He is said to have cut off a captain's lips, cooked them in front of him, and forced him to eat them. Then he killed everyone else on the ship anyway. A pirate named François l'Olonnais was said to have carved out the heart of a captured Spanish soldier and gnawed on it while threatening the others. His cruelty was so extreme that even other pirates avoided sailing with him. These men were rare, but they existed, and their stories spread across every ocean. Which brings us to the end. The golden age of piracy, the era when men like this ruled the seas, lasted only about 30 years, from roughly 1690 to 1720. And then the empires struck back. Navies were built, pirate hunters were sent out, governments offered pardons to any pirate who surrendered, and a rope to any who did not. The public executions were brutal on purpose. Pirates were hanged in public squares, then their bodies were locked inside iron cages called gibbets. The cages were hung from posts along the coast, sometimes for years. The bodies rotted in the wind and sun where every passing sailor could see them. The message was clear: this is what happens to a pirate. By the 1720s, most of the famous names were dead. Blackbeard was killed in a swamp battle, his head cut off and hung from the front of a Navy ship. Bart Roberts, one of the most successful pirates who ever lived, was cut down by a cannon shot. Others were captured, tried and left swinging in cages for a decade. And with them died the code, the votes, the strange, brutal freedom. The empires won. Look back at the picture you started with, the eye patch, the parrot, the gold. The truth is uglier. The men who sailed under the black flag ran a system with its own laws, its own courts, its own justice, and its own horrors. They were fair to each other. They were monsters to everyone else. They lived free for 30 years in a world that had almost no room for freedom. And then the world made sure everyone forgot who they really were. They left us the cartoon and buried the rest.